Today, let's talk about St. Petersburg. I want to talk about some of the pros and cons. Let's go. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the channel. If you want to see more videos like this about Tampa, St. Petersburg, pros and cons, cost of living, things like that, don't forget to subscribe down below. I'm also a licensed realtor, so if you have any real estate specific needs, don't hesitate to reach out anytime. You can call, text, email. We would love to hear from you. Today, let's spend a little bit of time talking about St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is one of the top 5 biggest cities in Florida. Wait, but I think it's kind of part of Tampa. But it's kind of its own city, but it does have this unique vibe. It has its own history, has this different feel, but it is very much part of the Tampa area. It's really just one bridge that gets you from St. Petersburg to Tampa. A lot of people commute back and forth, and we see cities like this all over. Of course, famously, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota, but Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, all kinds of stuff like this. One of the most unique things about St. Petersburg to me is that it's a little bit of this blue or liberal spot in the middle of a more conservative state. Cities like this around the US are very loved, like Austin or Nashville or Salt Lake City. In the midst of more conservative states, to have a more liberal city, people kind of like that vibe. Let's get right into the pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. Pro number 1 is the food scene, and this is my favorite part about St. Petersburg, living kind of close to it. Great food all over the place, and me easily being able to pop in and out. And if you lived in those areas, you'd have your own little favorite spots, a lot of them that you could walk or bike to. You would be really engaged in that. You'd know the new places that are opening, and there's always new places opening. The food scene in St. Pete is really, really thriving. Pro number 2, community engagement. I talked about this on a video recently about the community involvement and engagement in the St. Petersburg area. And it is really, really high. And I can't imagine that being a con, that community engagement, seeing your neighbors and your friends involved in the community and being vocal about how they want the city to grow and change and help those that need help and all those kind of things. Number 3 for St. Petersburg is activities, and not just water. We'll get to that later. But a lot of other activities. You know, the Tampa Bay Rays, the baseball team, plays in St. Petersburg. There's all kinds of museums downtown, the Salvador Dali Museum, which brings in big other exhibits. They recently had a big Picasso exhibit at that museum. There's a big fine art museum downtown, a history museum, a lot of things like that. Botanical gardens, climbing gyms, everything in between. Not even mentioning like festivals and farmers markets and those kind of things. Those are more seasonal. Well, not the farmer's market, it's every weekend. But there are seasonal events, just like there are in a lot of these towns. All right, pro number 4 is politics. Just like we mentioned before, being kind of this blue spot in the middle of a red state is kind of coveted. And you really get this unique vibe. You get a different kind of, engagement from the community. A lot of these things that come along with being a more liberal town. All right, and pro number 5 is the water. St. Petersburg is surrounded by water. This peninsula you can see. A lot of St. Petersburg, the city, faces the Tampa Bay. South, you're facing more of the Gulf as you're looking out past the Skyway Bridge. Then as you go to the west side of the area, which is not actually St. Petersburg, it's Seminole, it's St. Pete Beach, it's all these other little beach towns. But all of those feel really connected to St. Petersburg. You have easy access to the beach, fishing, shells, all the fun stuff that goes along with having beach access. All right, now some of the cons. Number 1 is old houses, and some people love this, some people hate this. I was actually talking to someone yesterday that's really excited about finding an old quirky house, and there's a lot of them in St. Petersburg. And that may be what is actually the con, is that there's not much diversity. Most stuff is just older. And it's not all 1900s, it's not all termite eaten. A lot of it is block homes built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that have terrazzo floors and wood paneling and those kind of things. And I've seen a few that are in really, really nice condition, but a lot of them need to be updated. And if you want a more updated, modern feel, that's something you're gonna have to take on, or something you're gonna have to pay a premium for if somebody has already done it. Which takes us into con number 2. Home prices are high. When you look at the overall Tampa area, St. Petersburg is going to be on the higher end, like per square footage. There's a lot of small houses, so maybe, you know, the home prices of $500,000 don't seem crazy, but when you realize it's a small old house that doesn't have that many special things about it that you may be looking for, it is quite a bit more expensive when you look at some of the suburbs of things you could get. And that's just something that you're having to balance when you're choosing to live in St. Petersburg. And it's not just high costs of purchasing a home, but con number 3 is high rents. St. Petersburg rent has been growing for years and years. It's been a big topic. As I've mentioned over and over in videos, from 2015 to 2020, St. Petersburg rent increased about 66%. And that was pre-pandemic. Now during the pandemic, all this housing demand has skyrocketed. Housing prices, housing rent, all of it has gone through the roof. And rent in this area doesn't seem to be going down. The more demand there is for rent, the higher the prices can go. And it is softening a little bit. It's not like it's increasing like crazy every single month, but it is normal annual increases at this point. Maybe you live in St. Petersburg or you're looking for a rental. Tell us down in the comments what your experience has been with these prices. Con number 4 is that a lot of neighborhoods are transitioning, you know, whether that's from low income to high income or it's from outdated to updated. A lot of neighborhoods are kind of mid transition, and a lot of houses are being updated or even torn down and new houses built in their place. That feeling of transition kind of goes throughout the whole city of St. Petersburg. And actually that person I was talking to yesterday that is interested in St. Petersburg, this was not a negative to her at all. And maybe it's not to you. The scenarios where it might really feel like a con are like maybe you're the nicest house on the block, or you're just in the midst of, you know, construction and places falling apart. I don't know, like, I think you understand what I mean by, like, you know, your whole street just kind of feels like it's in the middle of a transition, and actually the whole city kind of feels like that. Some of that's really good. Some of that is like the momentum that you want in your city, and that's just kind of up for you to decide. Okay, and the last con, this is kind of where politics comes into a con, in my opinion. St. Petersburg has been kind of captivated by this woke culture. That kind of idea is not super welcomed in Florida. So you have these little spots of cities where it is really kind of embraced, and St. Petersburg is one of those. There are, you know, positives and negatives that go along with that, but a lot of that culture to me feels like people are just looking for something to be outraged about. And you may not share the same opinion, and that's fine. Now, I'm not saying a lot of these causes are bad. I'm saying that this tendency to follow and support whatever the most current popular outrage is not something I would want to be around. So it's up to you to decide. Here's some of the pros and cons of the St. Petersburg area. And again, we would love to hear from you. If you're thinking about moving to St. Pete, we would love a phone call, a text, email from you anytime. Oh, and if you did enjoy this video, I think you'll enjoy some of these other St. Petersburg videos. This one from our Tampa Explained series, people seem to really enjoy this, where I break down a little bit more history, a little bit more of the kind of uniqueness of St. Pete. Thanks for coming by.